The smell of the place. This is a very important notion if we're talking about physical space. And I think the entire day has been the talk of technological advancement and how does the physical place look like. I really like a talk by Sumantra Ghoshal, who is unfortunately deceased himself, but he had a lovely talk about what organizations do to their people, how a smell of a place can influence them to leap forwards or be sent back into the Middle Ages. And I think a very important notion, if we're talking about high education and a high standard of research of health, it very much has to do with the place. And this place is not really only physical, it's also virtual. And I try to show on a few points how these advancements can give different solutions for campus environments as such, as motors and generators, maybe of economy, but especially of health. Behind me is, I think, an image that all of us think of when we see or think about a campus. A very traditional image. It's almost signing a higher purpose, which goes way beyond the individual passerby. This is like an eternity standing here. It's so overpowering. It tells us that we are mere standers-by. Whereas I show you one of the most recent designs for a campus environment, and this is by the Bjarke Ingels group together with Heatherwick for the Google campus. We see something happening that is quite different. This is a community space. This is communal. We can see there's self-sufficiency here, not only in energy, where even the buildings start to communicate in a way. They're covered by a large roof that generates energy under which there's a nice climate. People can walk out of their buildings easier. They can connect in an easier way. We can also see that the place itself is self-sufficient. People growing their healthy foods here on campus. There's a different thought of the fit out of the campus, really truly as a community space. Well then, if we try to stress on what a campus is by definition, in a traditional sense, it's merely just an open space. In Latin it says open space or field. I would state that it's a connective environment for sharing knowledge and experience in order to make the world a better place. I think there's always this higher notion in any campus environment that is very important to stress. So if we look at a sort of golden circle, a prototype or principle, and we look at the campus as a site-specific thing, what is the why? Why are we making and building these campus environments? It's clearly for the higher purpose of to help develop a better world. And we use innovation, technology, and through that maybe evolution, sometimes even a revolution, to cause the difference, to create the effect. The incentive would of course also be the practicalities, how we build the working communities, the smell of the place. We were talking about target groups before in the sessions at the main stage. It's not just the target groups, it's the whole system of all of us intertwining into a sort of communicative system. We are talking about distinctiveness of the campus environment. We have to be professional plus. It's also something that we've been discussing at the Radboud University Medical Center. It's not just being about professional, it's like making a leap forward into that. And of course, very importantly, the whole basis of that will be business and finance to help support these future campuses to be enabled to do that. We as architects are often just talking about the what. So I do it specifically at the bottom end of the golden circle. We are discovering things that are really about the required, the practicalities, the means, the spaces, and sometimes the services. But that's not really what it's about. It is interesting to look at the build-up of the campus environment from a historical perspective, maybe. We can discern three typologies, and this is not really my survey, this is done by the real estate management of the Technical University in Delft, and it's a really nice kind of mapping or prototyping of what is going on. First of all, you have the city and the campus. They're both separate. The second one would be an integration of both, and the third is really a campus that is completely submerged within the city. And funny enough, if we put that in historical perspective, we can see that the original campus environments or universities started as an integration within the city. They were small, they were for the elite. A relatively small group of people could enter the university, could enter those facilities. With the socialization of our society and an increase and advancement of technology, we see that the campus environment moves out of the city, uses a vast amount of square meters in space, starts to grow and grow and grow like an own organism out of the city. Of course, also the cities then started to grow, and we see that the whole campus environment that was separate starts to be enveloped by the city again. And this is a very interesting notion because inherently you can already hear and see what's going on, that the traditional campus environments are literally within the city fabric, and also they can start to influence each other in a positive way. So if we're talking about site specificness and use of all these old buildings, there lies maybe a key in how to solve this issue. So what then might we say is the future campus? Is it something that Google is envisioning right now, or maybe something else? For that, we would have to understand what the current generation, the generation that's being brought up, is actually used to. And it's very interesting because this is a generation that is completely accepting virtual learning, has information in growing numbers available to them. Social media communities are a common ground. They know about mass consumerism, they know about pop entertainment, and they add all of that up in their field and scope of living. So there's an interesting quote here on the screen, which actually sort of processes the effect on the physical environment. Well, never stepping foot on a campus isn't really what educators had in mind when they came up with those online courses, but that's really what's happening. So the campus environment starts to change in the amount of need to be there physically. For us architects, it's also a very interesting thing. I think, well, you might have seen it when you started to study, that there were already some ideas about how architecture would disappear. It would become the virtual world. We had films like The Matrix. And of course, we see here Iron Man sort of fooling around with a virtual object in real space, but actually modeling and prototyping in a totally new way and fashion. So there's a prediction there, actually, that we can start testing in real space and we can walk into objects that are or were supposed to be very small and very hard to study, but we can now prototype and map them in a way that we can walk into them, we can look around in them, we can see a fuel cell or a part of a human heart and can just look around in it. These are new technologies enabling new ways of seeing. What's also happening right now is that because information is easier accessible and there are emerging economies, we see people traveling around the world to obtain better knowledge, to want to go to places where there is this hub, this future campus maybe, where we can all intertwine together. It means that we allow different cultures also to have an influence. People themselves are changing. The student of the future is no longer just a young student. We see people with families, with social networks that are very busy already with building their life and their lifestyles, and they take part into that process. These are people that are very good at soft skills. So the traditional professor, let's say, that is sort of a bit scruffy and, you know, is a bit of a weirdo and people don't trust them, it's all changing. These are people that are completely intertwined and also are developing their soft skills. The future generation for sure. So what is a campus then, other than an attractive power to be a marketplace for knowledge in the future, to be attracting true talent? Does it happen through couleur locale, as I call it here? Is it that the physical space has to be so much more attractive because the virtual space is already there to do a lot of stuff that architects can no longer solve? Google is trying, of course, to make office spaces different in a way that is more experiential, and we really want to meet there to have a genuinely good time. I think a theory might be that the future campus is a combination of both. So it's a blend of the physical and the digital experience. It's online services and an optimal accessibility for face-to-face interaction. It's important to build social skills because we are indeed social creatures. And quite frankly, they're also just places to have some fun. If we're talking about fun and acceptance and agreeance of space, spaces that we like, there has been a lot of research. Unfortunately, architecture is always a bit of a field of the average, and we don't really know. But there are some things that might be said for the campus environment as such. First of all, we judge our environment greatly, and our happiness of our location, and I think Harry already showed it with his lovely house and his talk about Frank Lloyd Wright, is aesthetics. Aesthetics we regard very highly, awarely or not, it's within our system. From that below is the value and the identity that we can create through that. Below that again comes a certain leadership that might be important, opportunity of course to develop, and on the end it's just the practicalities of the city services. If we put that in a graph for, let's say, the future campus as a footprint, we see in general four different type of groups that can reside on a campus environment. Of course the academics, and residential, we already know from students, but possibly also from the people that work there, that are scientists there. Of course, when you live there, you want to have also a good environment for retail and leisure. You want to be there 24/7 in a good way. And what is very interesting, because the campus is changing from its finance mode, we are allowing related businesses in. We hear a lot about incubators. Why not include them in the whole research and development of the place? This all binds together through infrastructure, and that is not just making physical contact or just cars. This is also the virtual world and the digitization. If we look at the traditional campuses right now, and most of them are between 60, 70 years old, this is of course an image that most of us know from campus environments. They're very harsh environments. They were built for a certain age, and they are large. So they generate a lot of costs in just upkeeping them. They're often outdated because they were made a long time ago also for different needs. Very extensive use of space, inefficient use of space, and also territory culture. Things can exist alongside each other. I think the opportunities lie in the campus as a city, so that we can intertwine the physical space with the city environment. Also important, and I think I don't have to stress this, is of course what we call at Radboud the scenario X, which is about the digital world and the developments and advancements that come from there. Because after all, we've grown from an agricultural system like in 1800 to a knowledge system right now. And universities and places like the campus environments can serve as the economic engine to that. So if we're trying to map that into a physical system, what might occur then is that we have, and I think this is very important, all these different groups that used to have, all of them had their own territories on this campus site. They start to intertwine together more and more. They have chance encounters, serendipitous conversation, and that all within a recreational activity. So from that comes serendipity and innovation. If we map that into some specific graphs, you see that every average site that you will enter on a campus will start with the site itself, then moves up to public space, semi-public space, up until private and really enclosed for focus. They were like a pyramid. It was really like literally a couple of layers with the different user groups entering into them until they were at the heart. And wouldn't it be a great model that we open this one up and that from one space we can see all of these different environments and can choose to enter upon them either just by view or just by taking notice, but always seeing them within a space that is communal. So a sense of, and I call this the pinball free flow, the journey. We're talking about the patient journey, but also the people's journey that are working on the campus. They're just as equally important. How do we join them together to meet and relax, and sort of learning hubs and co-working spaces that tap into these specific places on the campus? I like to end my talk, which are just, you could see them as a sort of tendencies towards a new type of campus, a new system of being together. What is important for the patient then in all of this? And of course, if we peel the layers in a different kind of way and we look at the proximity of the different types of involvements, we see, of course, person-centered care, the patient as client, very familiar words, patient-centered, and of course at the Radboud, which I think is a crucial one, the patient really as partner, because indeed, we as people are becoming wiser, and the way we interact with our physician is going to be crucial in the future. I think the talk of Roy and Robert was very clear in how the physical environment will be much reduced, but I would say it has to become a healing environment where the contact that is being made is in a much shorter time, but of much higher quality. So it's an intense experience that we can run from many different positions. As architects, we are running from evidence-based design. We're processing through that system more and more and more. But there are different approaches towards the bedside, as Harry is developing right now. Patient and family-centered care. Also, the family has and will have a very important role in the patient journey on the campus and through the campus. And I could make another slide, but I will stop here, where I turn it around and say, really, the patient is also very important in progressing. And this might not just be a physical place, but also a virtual place to, in the end, always and as much as possible feel at home. I thank you.